Now it is time for a story about gaming. It is a story about who I am and why. It was originally written in June of 2007. It started out, portions of this were originally published on my blog, originally published when I wrote for the Suicide Girls Newswire, and the story appears in its entirety in my book, The Happiest Days of Our Lives. It is called The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Geek. December 1983. I sat on the floor in my Aunt Val's house and I opened up her Christmas present to me. It was a red box with a really cool looking dragon on the front of it. Inside there were a few books, some dice, and a map. "That's a game that I hear lots of kids like to play, Willow," she said. "It's got dragons and wizards and all those things you liked from The Hobbit. The back says you use your imagination, and I know what a great imagination you have." My brother played with Lego and my cousins played with handheld electronic games. I felt ripped off. Wow! Thanks, Aunt Val! Later, while the other kids played with Simon and Mattel electronic football, I sat near the fireplace and examined my gift. It said that I could be a wizard, or a fighter, or a class called Elf. Kids, ask your parents. But there weren't any pieces in the board, in the box, that looked like that. There were a lot of weird dice, and I had to color in the numbers. Okay, well, that seems silly, but at least it's something to do, and it's kind of like playing, I guess. I grabbed the black crayon and rubbed it over the pale blue dice, just like the instructions said. My Aunt Val, who was my favorite relative in the world throughout my entire childhood and all of my adulthood until the day she died, walked into the living room. "What do you think, Willow?" "I colored in these dice." "But I haven't read the book yet." She patted my leg. "Well, I hope you like it." She moved to the other side of the room, where my cousin Jack played Cement Factory on a Nintendo Game & Watch, lucky son of a bitch. I opened the player's book and I began to read. February 1984. It was afternoon PE in 5th grade, and I was terrified. I ran and jumped and ducked, surrounded by a jeering crowd of my classmates. The PE teacher did nothing to stop the attack. In fact, she encouraged it. "Get him!" someone yelled as I fell to the asphalt, small rocks digging into my palms. I breathed hard. Through my adrenaline-fueled flight or fight response, the world slowed, the jeering faded, and I wondered to myself why our playground was just a parking lot, and why we had to wear corduroy pants in the middle of a Southern California heat wave. Before I could offer up any answers, a clear and loud voice spoke from my lizard brain. "Hey," it said, "you better get up and move or you're dead." I nodded my head and I looked up in time to see a red playground ball spinning in slow motion as the word "Voight" rotated into view. I'm just going to apologize in advance if this gives any of you guys post-traumatic stress. Friends of Will W. meet on the bow there. Pain exploded across my face and a mighty cheer erupted from the crowd. The PE teacher blew her whistle. I don't know how I managed to be the last kid standing on our dodgeball team. I usually ran right to the front of the court so I could get knocked out quickly and with a minimum of pain before the good players got worked up by the fury of battle and started taking headshots. But I'd been stricken by a bout of temporary insanity, perhaps brought on by the February heat that was held in by my corduroy pants. And I'd actually played to win this stupid game using a very simple strategy, the run like hell and hope to get lucky strategy. I blinked back tears as I looked up at Jimmy Just, who had delivered the fatal blow. Jimmy, a playground bully. He spent as much time in the principal's office as he did in our classroom. He was the most feared dodgeball player at the Lutheran School of the Foothills. He laughed at me, his long hair stuck to his face in sweaty mats, and he sneered, "Nice try, Will the Pill." I picked myself up off the ground, determined not to cry. I sucked in deep gasps of air through my nose. Mrs. Cooper, the PE teacher, came over to me. "Are you okay, Will?" she asked. "Uh-huh." I lied. Anything more than that, and I risked breaking down into humiliating sobs that would follow me around the rest of the school year, perhaps persisting once we changed campuses at the end of spring and moved to the new campus in 6th grade. "Why don't you go wash off your face," she said, not unkindly, "and sit down for a minute." "Okay." I walked slowly across the blacktop to the drinking fountains. Maybe if I really took my time, I could run out the clock, and I wouldn't have to get back in for another stupid dodgeball game. January 1984. Papers scattered across my bed appeared to be homework to the casual, untrained eye. But to me, each sheet represented a person. A thief, a couple of wizards, a fighter, a party of adventurers who desperately wanted to leave the keep on the borderlands. But without anyone to guide them, they sat alone, trapped in the purgatory of my bedroom, straining behind college-ruled blue lines to be brought into life. I tried to recruit my younger brother to play with me, but he was 7 and more interested in Mon-Chi-Chi. The kids in my neighborhood were more interested in football and doing jumps on their bikes, so I was left to read through Module B2 myself, wandering the caves of chaos and dodging the lizard men alone. February 1984. I washed my face and drank deeply from the drinking fountain. By the time I made it back to the benches along the playground's southern edge, I'd lost the urge to cry, but my face radiated enough heat to compete with the blistering La Crescenta sun. I didn't confirm it, but I was fairly certain the word "void" was written across my cheek backwards. I sat down near Simon Teal, who, thanks to the wonders of alphabetization, ended up with me and Harry Yan, the school's lone Asian kid, on field trips, on fire drills, and in chapel. Simon was taller than all of us. He wore his hair down into his face and he kept to himself. He was reading an oversized book that sort of looked like a textbook. It was filled with charts and tables. We weren't officially friends, but I knew him well enough to make polite conversation. "Hey," I said, "why don't you have to play dodgeball?" "Asthma," he said. "Lucky." "I hate dodgeball." "Everyone hates dodgeball," he said. He thought for a moment and then added, "Well, except Jimmy Just." Yeah. I was relieved to hear someone else say out loud what I'm pretty sure all of us had been thinking since 4th grade. "Hey," I said, "what are you reading?" He held up the book and I saw its cover. A giant statue illuminated by torches behind an archway. 2 guys were on its head, prying loose one of its jeweled eyes as a group of people stood near the base. One clearly a wizard, another obviously a knight. "This is called the Player's Handbook," he said. "You play D&D?" I gasped. According to our ultra-religious school, D&D was satanic. I looked up for teachers, but none were nearby. 100 feet away on the playground, another game of dodgeball was underway. I reflexively flinched when I heard the hollow pang of the ball as it skipped off the ground. Honestly, if any of us ever worked in, like, let's say we're nerds, like worked in a bank, right? All somebody has to do is walk in bouncing a dodgeball and be like, take it, take it, it's all yours. Here, no die packs, just put the ball down, go. I'm giving myself a wedgie, it's fine, I got it, you're cool, take it. I walked over to my kids' elementary school campus when they attended there, and you know, I'm an adult, like, I can take these fucking kids. But I heard that thing, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna send a note. "You're gonna get in trouble if you get caught with that," I said. "No, I won't," he said. "I just keep the cover turned upside down, they never see it. So, do you play or not?" "I have the red box set and a bunch of characters," I said, "but I don't have anyone to play with." "Oh, that's basic," he said. "This is advanced." I know, right? Oh. "But if you want, you could come over to my house this weekend and we could play." I could not believe my good luck. With a dodgeball to the face, fate put me on the bench next to a kid who, over the next few months, helped me take my first tentative steps down the path to geekdom. He had a ton of AD&D books, the Dungeon Master's Guide, which had a truly terrifying freak demon on the cover, which would result in certain expulsion if seen at school. the Monster Manual, which was filled with dragons, and the Fiend Folio, which had not only demons and devils, but a harpy and a nymph who had an accompanying drawing of a naked woman with boobs. Simon's parents were divorced. He lived with his mom in a huge house in La Cañada. His room was filled with evidence of that custody Cold War. Too many toys to count littered the floor and spilled out of his closet. And even though we were surrounded by Atari and Intellivision, G.I. Joe and Transformers, we had D&D fever, and the only prescription was more polyhedral dice. Though it was just the two of us playing, we crawled through every inch of the Caves of Chaos and explored the Isle of Dread. We spent all our free time at school making new characters, designing dungeons, and unsuccessfully attempting to recruit other kids to play with us. March 1984. My babysitter Gina's older brother was an experienced dungeon master, and he let us play in one of his custom-made dungeons. My fighter walked into a room, got trapped behind a portcullis, and died when I sprang a trap trying to escape. It didn't even make sense for there to be a portcullis in front of that room anyway. It was 10 by 10. Like, who puts a portcullis in front of a 10 by 10 room and then traps it? There wasn't even any treasure inside. Like, it just should have said, "Are you wondering if I'm a gigantic dick? Walk into this room and find out. Signed, the Dungeon Master."